Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Harbinger. The lights on the control panels blinked steadily as his crew worked at their stations. Everything was quiet and normal. Just another day on patrol duty in deep space. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Council and started sending ships out to protect their territory. The Galactic Council was like a big government that included hundreds of different alien species from all across the galaxy. When humans first made contact with aliens 3 years ago, everyone was shocked. The aliens were even more shocked when they learned where humans came from. Earth was what they called a Class 12 Deathworld, one of the most dangerous planets anyone had ever heard of. Most aliens came from peaceful worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. Earth had hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and animals that could kill you in dozens of different ways. The fact that humans had survived and built a civilization on such a deadly planet made other species very nervous. Lieutenant Amy Chen was working at the communications station when she suddenly sat up straight. Her fingers moved quickly across her controls, and her face showed concern. She turned to look at Jake. "Captain, I am picking up a distress signal," she said. "It is coming through on the Emergency Galactic Council frequency." "Arning." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Let me hear it." Amy pressed a button, and a voice filled the bridge. It was high and shaky, clearly belonging to someone who was terrified. The voice belonged to one of the Varine, a species that looked like tall, thin creatures with big eyes and 3 fingers on each hand. The Varine were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful scientists and researchers. "This is Science Vessel Luminary," the voice said. "We are under attack by Kreshtar raiders. Our shields are failing. We have civilians aboard, including younglings. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need immediate assistance. Our coordinates are..." The message suddenly turned into nothing but static noise. Jake stood up from his chair. "Did we get those coordinates?" Amy checked her screens. "Yes, sir. They are about 6 hours away if we go at maximum slipspace velocity." Slipspace was how ships traveled faster than light. It was like creating a bubble around the ship that let it move through a different layer of space, where the normal rules did not apply. Even with slipspace, the galaxy was huge, and 6 hours was actually pretty close. Jake did not waste any time thinking about it. "Set course immediately. Sound battle stations. Get me Captain Danny Cooper on the Sentinel, and Captain Lisa Hayes on the Defender. If we are going into a fight, we are not going alone." Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights started flashing as the crew rushed to their battle positions. The Harbinger was not alone out here. 2 other human warships were on patrol nearby, and Jake wanted all 3 ships together before they faced whatever was attacking the Varine. Within just a few minutes, all 3 human warships had changed course and were accelerating toward the distress signal. The 3 ships moved through slipspace like bullets, traveling at speeds that would take them across the solar system in seconds. In the command center of the Harbinger, Jake pulled up information about the Kreshtar on his display screen. The Kreshtar were bad news. They were a species of raiders and pirates who attacked weaker ships, stealing cargo and capturing crews to sell as slaves. They were cruel, and they were greedy, and they did not care who they hurt. Commander Rick Palmer was the ship's tactical officer, in charge of weapons and combat strategy. He had been studying the Kreshtar files too. "Captain," Rick said, "the Kreshtar typically operate in packs of 5 to 7 vessels. Their ships are heavily armed with plasma cannons and missile systems. How do they compare to us?" Jake asked. Rick smiled just a little bit. It was not a happy smile. "Sir, their weapons are designed to fight other Galactic Council species. They have never engaged a human warship in actual combat." Jake nodded slowly. He understood what Rick was saying. The galaxy had learned that humans built their ships very differently from everyone else. Most alien species designed their vessels to be fast and efficient. They made them light and quick, with just enough weapons and shields to do the job. Humans built their ships to survive. Every human warship had thick armor plating, backup systems for the backup systems, and weapons that other species thought were way too powerful. It was just how humans thought about things. They always prepared for the worst possible situation and hoped for the best. This made sense when you understood where humans came from. On Earth, if you were not prepared, you died. Simple as that. Humans had learned over millions of years to always expect danger, to always have a backup plan, and to always be ready to fight. Other species thought this was paranoid and excessive. Humans thought it was just common sense. Time until we reach the target? Jake asked. 5 hours and 40 minutes, Amy reported from her station. Jake sat back down in his command chair. Let us hope we are not too late. The 3 human warships raced through slipspace toward the distress call. Inside the Harbinger, the crew prepared for battle. Weapons were powered up and checked. Shield generators were tested and brought to full capacity. Medical teams prepared the sickbay for potential casualties. Everyone knew their job, and everyone did it without hesitation. Jake thought about the Varine on that science ship. They were probably terrified right now, watching the Kreshtar ships circle around them like sharks around a wounded fish. The Varine were not warriors. They were scientists and researchers, peaceful people who just wanted to study the galaxy and learn new things. They did not deserve to be attacked by pirates. This was why humanity had joined the Galactic Council. Not for profit or power, but because someone needed to protect the peaceful species from the predators. Someone needed to stand up to the raiders and pirates and say, "No more." And humans were very good at that. Rick Palmer checked his tactical displays one more time. Captain, all weapons systems are green. Railguns are loaded and ready. Missile batteries are armed. Point defense systems are online. We are ready for combat. Good, Jake said. Make sure the crew knows the rules of engagement. We disable. We do not destroy unless we have no choice. I want prisoners if possible. The Galactic Council will want to put these raiders on trial. Understood, sir, Rick replied. The hours crawled by slowly. On a ship traveling through slipspace, there was not much to see. The normal stars and planets were hidden behind the strange, swirling colors of slipspace. It looked like an abstract painting, all blues and purples and colors that did not have names. Some people found it beautiful. Others found it disturbing. Jake used the time to review the tactical plans with his officers. They discussed the Varine science vessel Luminary was in bad shape. Its shields were flickering like a dying light bulb, barely holding together. 6 Kreshtar warships moved around it in a slow circle. Their weapons pointed at the helpless science ship. Inside the Luminary, Chief Researcher Velen held his datapad with shaking hands. Around him, his crew huddled together in fear. The younger Varine were crying softly, making small, whimpering sounds. Why have they not destroyed us yet? Whispered Joran, who was Velen's assistant. Joran was young, barely out of university, and he had never been in danger like this before. Velen kept his voice low and calm, even though he was just as scared. They want the ship intact, and they want us alive. We are worth more money that way. They will sell us as slaves. The thought made everyone even more frightened. Slavery was illegal in Council space, but out here on the frontier, the law did not mean much. The Kreshtar had been raiding and capturing people for decades, and they were very good at it. On the bridge of the lead Kreshtar vessel, Captain Threxus watched the science ship with satisfaction. Threxus was a large Kreshtar, with dark scales and multiple eyes that could look in different directions at once. He had been a raider captain for 20 years, and this was going to be an easy score. Prepare boarding parties, Threxus ordered his crew. We will strip the vessel of anything valuable, then take the crew. The Varine always fetch a good price at the slave markets. His second-in-command, a younger Kreshtar named Vek, suddenly looked at his sensor screen with confusion. Captain, I am detecting 3 slipspace signatures approaching rapidly. Threxus's multiple eyes focused on Vek. Identify them. Vek's claws moved across his controls, trying to get more information. The signatures are very large, Captain. Much larger than normal patrol ships. I cannot get a clear reading on their origin. Threxus waved one hand dismissively. Probably some council peacekeepers. They will not arrive for hours. We will be long gone before they get here. Speed up the boarding process. Sir, Vex said, his voice rising slightly. They will be here in 15 minutes. Threxus felt his scales go cold. What kind of ships move that fast? Before anyone could answer, 3 massive vessels suddenly appeared out of slip space. The very fabric of space seemed to ripple and tear as they arrived. Like something huge pushing through a curtain, the Kreshtar ships immediately sounded their alarms as their sensors tried to process what they were seeing. These ships were completely different from anything in the Council fleet. They were not sleek and elegant like most alien vessels. They were brutal and aggressive in design, covered in thick gray armor plating that looked like it could take a beating. Weapons systems covered every surface. Big guns and missile tubes pointing in all directions. The ships looked like they were built for one purpose only, to fight and win. Identify those vessels immediately, Threxus commanded, his voice sharp with worry. His sensor officer worked frantically at his controls, then looked up with wide eyes. Sir, they are broadcasting human identification codes. Every Kreshtar on the bridge froze. The name human had become known throughout the galaxy in the past 3 years. Everyone knew the story. Humans were the newcomers. The species from a Class 12 Deathworld called Earth. They were primitive compared to many species, having only invented slip space travel a few decades ago. But they were also dangerous in ways that made other species nervous. Humans came from a planet where everything tried to kill them. The weather could kill them. The animals could kill them. Even tiny organisms too small to see could kill them. And yet, humans had not just survived, they had thrived. They had conquered their world, and then built weapons capable of destroying it several times over. They had fought terrible wars against themselves, and somehow managed not to go extinct. Humans, Threxus repeated, trying to sound confident. They are just one species. We outnumber them 2 to 1. 6 ships against 3. But even as he said it, Threxus felt doubt creeping into his mind. He had heard stories from other raider captains about human ships. Stories that seemed impossible. Stories about weapons that could punch through shields like they were not there. Stories about armor so thick that it could take dozens of hits without failing. The lead human ship, the Harbinger, opened a communication channel. A holographic image appeared in the air above the Kreshtar bridge. It showed a human male, with short dark hair and cold eyes. When he spoke, his voice was completely calm and controlled, which somehow made it more frightening. Kreshtar vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison, of the Earth defense ship Harbinger. You are ordered to power down your weapons and withdraw immediately. The vessel you are attacking is under the protection of the Galactic Council, of which humanity is a member. You have 30 seconds to comply. Threxus straightened up, trying to look strong and confident. He could not show weakness in front of his crew. Human, you are outnumbered. We have 6 warships. You would be wise to— 20 seconds, Jake interrupted, his voice flat and emotionless. Threxus felt his confidence start to crumble. There was something in the human's tone that bothered him deeply. It was not anger or fear or excitement. It was certainty. Complete, absolute certainty. Like a person stating a simple fact, like saying the sky is blue or water is wet. But Threxus was a raider captain. And raider captains did not back down. If he retreated now, word would spread. Other raiders would think he was weak. His own crew might challenge his leadership. No, he had to make a stand. All ships, open fire on the human vessels, Threxus commanded. Show them what happens to those who interfere with the Kreshtar. It was a decision he would regret for the rest of his life, which was going to be much shorter than he expected. The 6 Kreshtar warships opened fire all at once. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space with bright green and blue bolts of energy. Missiles streaked toward the human ships, their engines leaving trails of fire behind them. It was an impressive display of firepower, enough to cripple most Council warships. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Commander Rick Palmer watched the incoming fire on his tactical display. His face showed no concern at all. Shields holding at 97%. Minimal damage to outer armor plating. Jake Morrison nodded. It was exactly what he had expected. Human shields were not like the shields other species used. They were designed to stop much more powerful weapons. They had to be, because humans had developed weapons during their own wars that could crack planets open. Nuclear bombs, antimatter warheads, kinetic impactors moving at near light speed. Compared to those weapons, Kreshtar plasma cannons were like throwing pebbles at a tank. Lieutenant Amy Chen checked the status of the other two human ships. Captain Cooper on the Sentinel and Captain Hayes on the Defender are reporting similar results. Their shields are barely scratched. Jake allowed himself a small, cold smile. Return fire. Tactical precision. Disable their ships. Do not destroy them. I want prisoners to hand over to the Council. Yes, sir, Rick replied, his fingers moving across his weapons controls. What happened next would be talked about in bars and meeting halls across the galaxy for years to come. The three human warships opened fire with their railguns. These were weapons that most alien species did not use because they seemed primitive and old-fashioned. A railgun was just a weapon that used powerful magnets to throw a solid chunk of metal at extremely high speed. No fancy energy beams, no plasma, just a hunk. The last two Kreshtar vessels realized very quickly that they had made a terrible mistake. Captain Threxus watched in horror as 4 of his ships were disabled in less than a minute. His scales went pale, and his multiple eyes darted around frantically, looking for any way out of this situation. Retreat! Threxus shouted at his pilot. Get us to slipspace now. The remaining 2 Kreshtar ships turned and began accelerating away from the battle, their engines burning at maximum power. They needed to get far enough away from the gravity wells of nearby planets to open slipspace portals and escape. It would take them about 2 minutes to reach a safe distance. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Jake Morrison watched the fleeing ships on his tactical display. Do not let them get to slipspace, he ordered calmly. Launch interceptors. Captain Lisa Hayes on the Earth Defense Ship Defender received the order and immediately activated her ship's drone bay. The Defender was specialized for this kind of work. Its hull contained dozens of hunter-killer drones, small autonomous weapons guided by artificial intelligence. The bay doors on the Defender's hull opened, and a swarm of 30 drones shot out like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. Each drone was about the size of a small car, but they could accelerate much faster than any ship carrying living crew. They did not have to worry about G-forces or keeping their passengers alive. They could pull maneuvers that would turn a human into paste. The drones spread out in a pattern and raced after the 2 fleeing Kreshtar vessels. Their AI systems were tracking the ships, calculating trajectories, predicting evasive maneuvers before the Kreshtar pilots even thought of them. Within 30 seconds, the drones had caught up to their targets. The first group of drones attached themselves to the hull of Threxus's ship with magnetic clamps. Threxus felt the impacts through the deck plates and knew that something was very wrong. What was that? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, the drones activated their shaped charges. These were small explosives designed to focus their blast in one direction, like a cutting torch. The charges detonated directly against the slipspace generator, the device that would have allowed the ship to escape. Metal screamed, and circuits exploded. Smoke filled the engineering section of the Kreshtar vessel. Slipspace generator destroyed, Captain, the engineering officer reported, his voice shaking. We cannot jump. The same thing happened to the 6th Kreshtar ship. Drones latched on, fired their charges, and disabled the slipspace generator. Both vessels were now trapped, unable to fight and unable to run. The entire engagement, from the moment the human ships opened fire to the moment the last Kreshtar vessel was disabled, had lasted exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds. On the Vereen science vessel Luminary, Chief Researcher Velen and his crew had watched the whole thing through their observation ports and sensor screens. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They just stared in complete shock at what they had witnessed. Finally, young Joran found his voice. It came out as barely a whisper. They barely even fired their weapons. Look at the human ships. Most of their weapon systems never even powered up. They did not need them. Velen nodded slowly, his large eyes blinking. He was a scientist, trained to observe and analyze and understand. But what he had just seen was difficult to process. The Kreshtar were known throughout this sector as dangerous raiders. Their ships were well armed and their crews were experienced fighters. 6 Kreshtar vessels should have been a serious threat to anyone. The humans had swatted them aside like insects. No, that was not even accurate. Insects could at least irritate you before you swatted them. The Kreshtar had not even managed to scratch the human shields. Velen had read reports about humans after they joined the Galactic Council. He knew they came from a Class 12 Deathworld, a planet where the very air could kill most other species. Earth had massive storms that could destroy entire cities. It had earthquakes that could split the ground open. It had animals with teeth and claws and venom and dozens of other ways to kill. And the humans themselves, throughout their history, had fought terrible wars against each other with weapons that could level mountains and poison the land for generations. But reading reports and seeing the reality were two completely different things. Velen felt a chill run through his body that had nothing to do with the temperature on the ship. The communications panel in front of Velen lit up with an incoming message. He hesitated for a moment, then activated it. The image of Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the screen. The human looked much less intimidating now. His expression had softened, and his voice was gentle. Vereen Vessel Luminary, this is Captain Morrison. The threat has been neutralized. Is anyone aboard your ship injured? Do you require medical assistance? Thanks for watching. Or don't forget this. Velen managed to work his 3-fingered hands enough to activate his microphone. Captain Morrison, this is Chief Researcher Velen. We have some minor injuries but nothing critical. We cannot thank you enough. You saved our lives. You saved the younglings. Just doing our job, Chief Researcher, Jake replied, as if what he had just done was the most normal thing in the galaxy. We are sending over a repair team to help stabilize your ship's systems. We will also provide an escort back to Council space. You will be safe. The communication ended, and Velen turned to look at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for him to say something wise or reassuring. Velen was supposed to be their leader, the one with answers. Document everything, Velen said quietly. Every sensor reading, every piece of data we collected during that engagement. The Council needs to understand what we just witnessed. Several hours later, human repair crews were working on the Luminary's damaged systems. The human engineers were efficient and professional. They brought spare parts and tools, and worked quickly to get the Vereen ship's engines and life support back to full capacity. They were also friendly, chatting with the Vereen crew and sharing stories. One of the human engineers, a woman named Betty Grant, was working on repairing a damaged power conduit when Joran approached her nervously. "Excuse me," Joran said in his high-pitched voice. "May I ask you a question?" Betty looked up from her work and smiled. "Sure, go ahead." "Your ships," Joran said carefully. "They are very powerful. Much more powerful than the ships other species use. Why do you build them that way? Why so much armor, and so many weapons?" Betty thought about the question for a moment while she reconnected some wires. "I guess it is just how we think," she said. "On Earth, if you are not prepared for the worst, you die. Our planet is not a nice place. The weather can kill you. The animals can kill you. Even the plants can kill you. Some of them. So we learned a long time ago to always be ready for trouble. But you are not on Earth anymore," Joran pointed out. "You are out here. In space. Do you still need to be so prepared?" Betty laughed, but it was not a mean laugh. "Look at what just happened. 6 pirate ships attacked you. If we had not been prepared, if our ships were not built tough, and our weapons were not powerful, we might not have been able to save you. Being prepared is not paranoia. It is just smart." Joran thought about this and realized she was right. The galaxy was a dangerous place. The Kreshtar were just one of many threats out here. There were raiders and pirates and criminals all over the frontier. Maybe the humans were not paranoid. Maybe they just understood the galaxy better than most species wanted to admit. Back on the Harbinger, Jake Morrison was in his ready room, recording his report for Earth Command. Engagement concluded at 1,847 hours ship time. 6 hostile vessels disabled with minimal expenditure of ammunition. No human casualties. No damage to human vessels beyond minor shield depletion. The Varine crew is safe, and their ship is being repaired. We are currently preparing to escort them back to Council space. He paused and thought about what else to say. I want to note for the record that the Kreshtar weapons were completely ineffective against our shields. Either their intelligence on human defensive systems is very poor, or they thought we were bluffing about our capabilities. Either way, I do not think they will make that mistake again. Once word of this engagement spreads, I expect we will see a significant decrease in pirate activity in this sector. Jake finished his report and sent it off to Earth. Then he sat back in his chair and allowed himself to relax for a moment. The truth was, the engagement had gone better than he could have hoped. No human. 2 days after the battle, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the brig area of the Harbinger, looking through the transparent energy barrier at Captain Threxus. The Kreshtar raider was secured in restraints that kept his arms bound to his sides. His multiple eyes glared at Jake with a mixture of anger, fear, and something that might have been grudging respect. You should have withdrawn when you had the chance, Jake said quietly. His voice was not angry or gloating. He just stated it as a simple fact. Threxus hissed, which was how his species expressed contempt. You humans think you are so superior. You have been in the galaxy for barely 3 cycles. You know nothing of how things work out here. Nothing. Jake pulled over a chair and sat down, making himself comfortable. He was not in a hurry. Then educate me. Explain it to me. Why attack a science vessel? What could they possibly have that was worth attacking a ship under Council protection? Everything is worth something, Threxus replied, his voice bitter. The Varine have valuable technology. Advanced sensors, research data, computing systems. Their crew would have fetched good money at the slave markets. That is how the galaxy works. Human. The strong take from the weak. That is the way it has always been. Not anymore, Jake said firmly. Not when we are around, Threxus laughed, though it sounded more like a coughing bark. You think 3 ships make a difference? There are thousands of raider vessels in this sector alone. Thousands. You cannot protect everyone. You cannot be everywhere at once. Maybe not, Jake admitted, leaning back in his chair. But we can make an example of you. Word travels fast. Even out here in the frontier, how long do you think it will take before every raider and pirate in the sector hears about what happened? 6 Kreshtar warships, all heavily armed, disabled in less than 3 minutes by 3 human vessels. And we barely used any of our weapons. Do you know what that tells people? A mourn. A mourn. A mourn. For the first time, Threxus looked uncertain. His eyes stopped glaring and started looking worried. Jake continued. It tells them that attacking ships when humans are nearby is suicide. It tells them that we are not like other Council species. It tells them that we will come when people call for help, and we will come fast, and we will win. That is the message that is going to spread across this entire sector. And then what? Threxus asked. You think fear will stop everyone? Fear only works until someone is desperate enough or angry enough to not care anymore. Fear is not the goal, Jake said, standing up. Respect is the goal. We want people to respect Council law. We want them to respect the rights of peaceful species, to travel safely. If fear is what it takes to get that respect, then so be it. But we would rather have people make the smart choice on their own. Jake turned to leave, then paused and looked back. Here is what is going to happen to you and your crews. We are going to turn you over to the Galactic Council for trial. Your ships will be impounded and probably scrapped. You will spend a very long time in a Council detention facility, and everyone in the galaxy is going to hear about it. You wanted to be strong? You wanted to take from the weak? Congratulations. You just became a cautionary tale. As Jake left the brig, Commander Rick Palmer fell into step beside him. The repair teams have finished with the Luminary, Rick reported. Chief Researcher Velen has been asking to speak with you. He says it is important. Send him to the observation lounge, Jake said, and prepare a full report for Earth Command. They are going to want to know every detail of this engagement. An hour later, Chief Researcher Velen stood in the observation lounge of the Harbinger, staring out at the stars through the large window. The damaged luminary was visible in the distance, now fully repaired and ready to travel. When Jake entered the room, Velen turned around quickly, his large eyes reflecting the starlight. "Captain Morrison," Velen began, his voice formal and respectful, "I wanted to thank you again, in person, for what you did. You saved 47 lives today, including 12 younglings who had never even been off their home planet before. Their parents will get to see them again because of you." "You are welcome," Jake said simply. "But I get the feeling there is something else you want to discuss." Velen hesitated, his three-fingered hands clasping together nervously. "Captain, I have been studying humanity since your species joined the Council 3 years ago. Your people fascinate many of us in the scientific community. You come from a world that should have destroyed you, that should have made it impossible for intelligent life to evolve. Yet instead of destroying you, it forged you into something formidable, something powerful. We do what we have to do to survive," Jake replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Every species does that. That is exactly what concerns some of us," Velen said carefully, choosing his words with obvious thought. "The Council has been debating whether humanity should be restricted in its military expansion. Some species fear that a race from a death world, with your level of technology and your capacity for violence, represents a threat to galactic peace." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice level and controlled. "We just saved you. We are protecting Council space from raiders and pirates. We are doing the job that the Council asked us to do. And there are species out there that think we are the threat. You have to understand," Velen said quickly, his voice pleading. "Most species in the galaxy evolved on much gentler worlds than Earth. We have conflicts, yes. We have disagreements and sometimes even wars, but nothing like what humanity has experienced. Your world wars, where millions died. Your weapons of mass destruction that could sterilize entire continents. The fact that you nearly destroyed yourselves multiple times and somehow managed to survive. It terrifies some species, Captain. They look at humans and see a species that is very good at violence. So what would you have us do?" Jake asked, his voice harder now. "Disarm ourselves? Pretend we are something we are not? Apologize for surviving? No," Velen said firmly, surprising Jake. "After today, I will be filing a report with the Council, recommending that humanity be given expanded authority to patrol and protect Council space. What I witnessed today was not mindless violence or cruelty. It was precise, controlled, and proportional. You could have destroyed those Kreshtar vessels easily. You had the power to blow them into atoms. You chose not to. You disabled them instead because you wanted prisoners, because you wanted justice rather than revenge. That shows restraint. That shows wisdom." Velen paused, then continued. "But I will also recommend that the Council establish protocols for working with human forces. Because Captain Morrison, whether you realize it or not, you are feared. The way you handled those raiders today, the efficiency and the overwhelming force, it will make people afraid. And fear can be a useful tool. But it can also be poison that spreads through a society." Jake considered this for a long moment, looking out at the stars. Finally, he spoke. "We did not ask to be feared. We just asked to be respected. We asked to be treated as equals, not as primitives or as threats. If other species are afraid of us, maybe that says more about them than it does about us." "Perhaps," Velen said thoughtfully. "Or perhaps, in the galaxy, fear and respect are the same thing. The strong are respected because they are feared. The weak are ignored because they inspire neither fear nor respect. Humanity is strong, therefore you are both feared and respected." "That seems like a sad way to run a galaxy," Jake observed. "It is the way things are," Velen replied. "Not the way things should be, but the way they are. The galaxy is not kind, Captain. It is not fair. There are species out here that prey on others because they can. The Kreshtar are just one example. There are worse things in the dark spaces between stars. Jake turned to face Velen directly. Then I guess it is a good thing that humanity is out here now. Someone needs to stand up to those worse things. Someone needs to protect the scientists and researchers and explorers who just want to learn and discover. If that someone has to be us, if we have to be the ones that others fear, then we will accept that burden. Velen studied the human captain for a moment. You know, when I first read about 3 weeks after the incident with the Kreshtar raiders, in a crowded bar on the trading station called Nexus Point, a group of alien merchants and traders gathered around a holographic display. The bar was dimly lit and smelled of various alien drinks and the unique scents of a dozen different species, all packed into one room. This was a place where information was traded as freely as goods and cargo. One of the traders, a Kreshtar who had survived the human attack, had leaked his ship's sensor recordings. Now that recording was being passed around the criminal underworld like wildfire. Everyone wanted to see what had really happened. A Zelthan trader named Kess, his blue scales rippling with unease, watched the recording for the third time. "Stop it there," he said to the bartender, who controlled the display. "Look at the timestamp. The entire battle lasted 173 seconds. Less than 3 minutes. Another merchant, a Korthian named Vril, leaned closer to the display. "And look at what they did not use," Vril said, pointing at the image of a human warship. "See those weapon ports? Those are missile tubes. They never fired a single missile. And those larger cannons on the sides? Never used. The humans disabled 6 raiders with just their railguns and some drones. They barely tried." A third trader, one of the insectoid clack species, clicked his mandibles nervously. "I heard a rumor that human ships carry nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs that can vaporize entire cities. Is that true?" "I heard that too," Kess replied quietly. "And I heard worse. They supposedly have antimatter warheads, weapons that can crack open moons. Nobody knows for sure because they have never had to use them." The bar fell silent for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Vril spoke again. "New rules for my crew," he announced. "We avoid any vessel that might have human protection. We avoid any sector where human warships are known to patrol. And under absolutely no circumstances do we engage a human warship directly. I do not care what the cargo is or how much money is involved. It is not worth it." Around the bar, other traders and captains nodded in agreement. Within days, several major pirate syndicates had issued similar protocols. Some raider groups that had been operating freely in council space for decades suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, worried that a human patrol might show up. The entire criminal economy of the frontier was being disrupted by fear. On Earth, in the Defense Command headquarters located in Geneva, Admiral Kate Miller stood before the Council of Defense Ministers. The room was large and formal, with representatives from every major nation on Earth sitting at a curved table. On the wall behind them, a massive screen showed a map of human patrol routes across known space. "The Harbinger incident has fundamentally changed our strategic position in the galaxy," Admiral Miller explained, using a pointer to highlight various sections of the map. "Prior to this engagement, we were seen as newcomers. Powerful, yes, but untested in actual combat against galactic-level threats. Now we have demonstrated in very clear terms that our weapons and tactics are effective. More than effective, devastating." Defense Minister George Parker, representing the North American Union, leaned forward. "What about the political fallout? How are other council species reacting to this?" "The reaction is mixed," Admiral Miller admitted. "Some species, particularly the smaller ones, and the more peaceful civilizations, are grateful. They see us as protectors, as someone who will actually respond when they call for help. The Varine have been especially vocal in their support. Chief Researcher Velen has given at least a dozen interviews praising the human response time and our professionalism." "And the others?" asked Minister Chen Huang, representing the Asian Federation. "Others are more wary," Miller said carefully. "They are concerned about human military power. Some species on the Council have suggested that we should be limited in how many ships we can deploy, or restricted from certain sectors of space. They use words like proportional response and measured force. But what they really mean is that we scare them. Minister Parker frowned. Should we scale back our patrols? Show them we are not a threat? Absolutely not, Admiral Miller replied firmly, her voice hard. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and there are far too many species that prey on the weak. The only reason that Verine's science vessel was not captured or destroyed is because we were close enough to respond quickly. Our presence is making Council space safer. The data proves it. Pirate attacks in sectors where we patrol have dropped by 60% in just the past 3 weeks. Minister Sarah Goldman, representing the European Commonwealth, raised her hand. What about the argument that we are just replacing one kind of fear with another? That instead of fearing pirates, people now fear us? Admiral Miller paused, considering her words carefully. There is a difference between healthy respect and terror. We are not conquering anyone. We are not demanding tribute or forcing our will on others. We respond to distress calls, we protect the innocent, and we turn criminals over to the proper authorities for trial. That is not tyranny. That is law enforcement. She pulled up another image on the screen. This one showing the captured Kreshtar vessels. These raiders have been attacking ships in this sector for over 20 years. Hundreds of people have died or been enslaved by them. The Council knew about it, but they did not have the resources or the will to stop it. We stopped it in 3 minutes. If that makes some species uncomfortable, then they need to ask themselves why they are uncomfortable with justice being served. The ministers talked among themselves for a few minutes. Then Minister Parker spoke again. Continue the patrols. Expand them if possible. But make sure our captains understand the importance of measured force. We are not out there to dominate. We are out there to protect. Understood, Minister. Admiral Miller replied. Back on the Harbinger, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, looking at a new set of orders on his command screen. The ship had been reassigned from simple patrol duty to rapid response. They would now be on call to respond to any distress signals within a very large area of space, covering dozens of systems. Lieutenant Amy Chen was reviewing the same orders at her station. Captain, we are receiving another distress call, she announced. A freighter is under attack by pirates. 2 systems over. They are requesting immediate assistance. Jake did not hesitate even for a second. Set course, maximum speed. Contact the Sentinel and the Defender and tell them to follow. As the Harbinger and its sister ships accelerated toward the new crisis, Jake felt a sense of purpose settle over him. This was what humanity was meant to do out here in the galaxy. Not conquer or dominate, but protect. Stand between the predators and the prey. Be the shield that the innocent could hide behind. He thought about the conversation he had with Chief Researcher Velen. Fear and respect. In the galaxy, maybe they were the same thing, but if humans were going to be feared, they would be feared for the right reasons. Not because they hurt the innocent, but because they protected them. Not because they were cruel, but because they were strong enough to stop those who were cruel. The 3 human warships tore through slip space at speeds that still amazed many alien species. On planets and stations across Council space, people were starting to change how they thought about humans. The violent primitives from the Deathworld were becoming something else. Protectors. Guardians. The ones you called when you needed help. In a cafe on a Verine colony world, Joran sat with a group of young scientists. All of them recently graduated from university. They were discussing their future plans, where they wanted to work, what research they wanted to pursue. One of them, a female named Sairi, expressed concern about working in the frontier sectors where raiders operated. It is too dangerous, she said. Too many ships have been attacked out there. Joran smiled and pulled up the recording of the Harbinger engagement on his datapad. Watch this, he said. Humans have changed everything. The frontier is not as dangerous as it used to be. Not when they are patrolling out there. The group watched the recording in silence. When it ended, Sairi looked thoughtful. They are terrifying, she said quietly. but I am glad they are on our side. That sentiment was spreading across the galaxy. In council chambers, in bars, in academic halls, in the command centers of corporations and governments, people were talking about humans, some with fear, some with admiration, some with both, but everyone was talking. On the outskirts of council space, in the dark regions where raiders and criminals gathered, the word was spreading even faster. Avoid the humans. Do not attack ships in sectors where they patrol. Do not engage them in combat. The Kreshtar had learned this lesson the hard way, and now everyone knew what happened when you challenged a ship from Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge as the Harbinger dropped out of slipspace near the attacked freighter. Sure enough, 3 pirate vessels were circling the damaged ship. When the human warships appeared, the pirates immediately broke off their attack and fled at maximum speed, not even bothering to try to fight. Should we pursue? Rick Palmer asked. Jake considered it, then shook his head. No. Our priority is the freighter. Make sure they are safe. The pirates learned their lesson. They will think twice before attacking another ship in this sector. As the Harbinger moved to assist the grateful freighter crew, Jake allowed himself a small smile. The message was spreading faster than he had expected. The galaxy was learning. Where human warships patrolled, the innocent were protected. The predators were stopped. Justice was served. Humanity had not asked to be the galaxy's protectors. They had not asked to be feared. But they were from Earth, a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years and failed. A world that had forged them in fire and storm and blood. If that meant they were the ones who had to stand between the darkness and the light, then so be it. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Not because humans wanted to conquer or dominate, but because they understood something that many peaceful species had forgotten. Sometimes, to protect peace, you need to be willing to fight. Sometimes, to defend the innocent, you need to be strong enough to stop those who prey on them. And humans, shaped by the most hostile planet in known space, were very good at being strong. As the Harbinger finished helping the freighter and prepared to continue its patrol, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble. Someone was calling for help, and when they did, humanity would answer. Not because they were paid to, not because they wanted glory or power, but because it was the right thing to do. That was the real message spreading across the galaxy. Not just that humans were strong or dangerous or to be feared, but that they were reliable. They came when you called. They fought when you needed protection. They stood firm when others ran away. The galaxy was learning what it meant to have Deathworlders as allies, and the criminals and raiders and predators were learning what it meant to have Deathworlders as enemies. The age of easy prey was over. The age of human protection had begun. Humans, I thought your species must be barbarians. Violent primitives who got lucky and discovered slipspace technology. But talking to you now, I realize I was wrong. You are not barbarians. You are guardians. You have seen darkness because your world is dark. You understand violence because your history is violent, and that makes you uniquely qualified to stand between the innocent and those who would hurt them. That is a very kind way of saying we are good at fighting, Jake said with a slight smile. It is the truth, Velen replied seriously. The galaxy needs fighters, Captain Morrison. We need species who are willing to stand up when others call for help. We need people who will rush toward danger instead of away from it. For millions of years, the Council has relied on deterrence and diplomacy. But deterrence only works if there is something to be deterred by. Diplomacy only works when both sides want peace. Sometimes, you need someone who can fight. And humans are very, very good at fighting. Casualties. The people they were sent to protect were safe. The bad guys were captured and would face justice. This was why he had joined the military. Not to conquer or destroy, but to protect. To stand between the predators and the prey. To be the shield that others could hide behind. There was a chime at his door. Come in, Jake called out. Commander Rick Palmer entered, carrying a datapad. Captain, We have finished our interrogation of the Kreshtar crews. Most of them are being cooperative now that they realize how badly outmatched they were. The lead captain, Threxus, is still defiant. But I think that is just pride. He knows he messed up. What are they saying? Jake asked. Mostly they are asking what kind of weapons we used and where Earth is located. Rick replied. They seem genuinely shocked that our railguns worked so well against their shields. Apparently, most species in this part of the galaxy do not use kinetic weapons anymore. They think they are primitive. Jake smiled slightly. Primitive does not mean ineffective. No, sir, it does not, Rick agreed. Of iron or tungsten, traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The Kreshtar had never encountered weapons like this. Their shields were designed to dissipate energy weapons by spreading the energy out across a wide area. But you cannot dissipate a solid object. You can only try to stop it, and the Kreshtar shields were not strong enough to stop projectiles moving at this speed. The first Kreshtar vessel took a railgun round directly through its forward shield generator. The solid slug of metal punched through the ship's armor like it was made of paper, destroyed the generator in a shower of sparks and debris, and came out the other side of the ship. The vessel immediately lost power to its forward sections, its lights flickering and dying. The second Kreshtar ship tried to dodge, its pilot throwing the vessel into an evasive pattern. But human targeting computers had been designed to track hypersonic missiles in Earth's thick atmosphere. Tracking a relatively slow-moving spaceship was easy by comparison. 3 railgun rounds hit the ship in quick succession. The first destroyed its engines, the second took out its weapon systems, the third disabled its power core. Within 40 seconds, 4 of the 6 Kreshtar vessels were crippled and drifting. Different scenarios, and how to handle each one. What if there were more Kreshtar ships than expected? What if the Varine ship had already been destroyed? What if the Kreshtar decided to use the Varine as hostages? Finally, after what felt like forever, Amy spoke up. Captain, we are approaching the target coordinates. Dropping out of slip space in 60 seconds. All hands prepare for combat, Jake announced over the ship-wide intercom. We are about to find out what we are dealing with. The Harbinger shuddered slightly as it dropped out of slip space and back into normal space. The Sentinel and the Defender appeared on either side. The 3 human warships forming a battle line. And there, ahead of them, were 6 Kreshtar warships circling a damaged Varine science vessel like vultures around a dying animal.